Welcome to the virtual lunch. Today is Friday, June 18th, and this is virtual lunch number 329. I'm really excited that my law school classmate and friend, Doug Luftman, Deputy General Counsel and Chief Privacy Officer at DocuSign, is our guest. And this is, of course, part of our continuing June series about empowering engagement, thanks to our friends at Joinder. Tell us about your career and your role at DocuSign.
My background is that I actually knew I wanted to go to law school, going all the way back to actually studying electrical engineering at UCLA way back when. So I was odd bird. And of course, having the engineering degree, having a legal degree, Silicon Valley just seemed like the perfect fit as to where to go. So I started my career at Fenwick & West as an outside counsel, counseling a variety of startups in the late 90s. Things were going crazy. I then had the call of going in-house and started a small startup called Caspian Networks. After going in-house, I caught the in-house bug. And I've been in-house in Silicon Valley for the last 20 years and have had my career go in a direction of touching on small, medium, and large size companies, private as well as public, and settled in that late stage private, early stage public as being the sweet spot that I just enjoy. And started at DocuSign probably about a year and a half ago. And law is very similar to engineering from the standpoint of being very methodical. It's a bunch of rules. You apply basically facts or information to those rules, and then you come up with a conclusion or evaluation going forward. And so that approach has helped. And also recognizing that also potentially can be a hindrance in knowing that not everything is black and white. And so recognizing that there's a lot of shades of gray. When I made the decision to go to DocuSign, I look back at my career of what I pursued. It actually was a progression of the type of technologies that were going on. And I wouldn't necessarily the hot technology, but at least the technology trends. And so when I started at Fenwick & West, it was all about the Excite Homes of the world, cable modems. We're also seeing that even traditional industries are really embracing technology as well. I mean, look at Walmart. Walmart has embraced technology enormously. We need to not only change with the times, but also understand the technology, at least at a high level. You're going to have to understand the technology because that's going to influence the business, the legal issues, and the way that you're going to have to counsel your clients. Where they describe basically the history of the ACC. And it was roughly, let's say 30 years ago, general counsels were ticket takers. You're lucky if you actually had a general counsel internally. It was usually outside counsel that actually served as a general counsel for a company. And what evolved over time is a recognition that you needed to have business savvy lawyers within the company in order to do it. And that was the evolution of ACC, is that ABA looked down upon in-house lawyers for a number of years because they were viewed as basically second tier type of attorneys or legal professionals. But what ultimately happened was it evolved from it being a place where basically people went in retirement to basically counsel the executives to being a hardcore type of legal attorney that really can handle anything that comes to the door. Over the last, I would say probably 5 to 10 years, I've actually found it's gone one step further, is that the level of sophistication and education that people in-house have has dramatically increased as well. I mean, it's been going on for much longer, but it's just been much more noticeable these days, where an attorney that comes in is really able to handle anything that comes to the door from the standpoint of the issues that a company is facing and helping facilitate it. And you're starting to see general counsel that are becoming CEOs. That's where the profession has gone in-house, is that the level of talent in-house has continued just to skyrocket up. And then the sophistication of what they need to do day to day, especially as everything seems to be getting quicker as to the legal issues and business issues and the more global nature of it. It's just been a really exciting ride and exciting to see what's happened with the in-house kind of expertise. When there's a deal, we have basically our corporate group that drives the overall definitive agreement, but we're involved in all of the due diligence as well as supporting the product. Where I also think it comes in is with regard to even helping identify potential opportunities. So for example, we support the in-product tech vendors. So is there a single source play that potentially you may want to consider either getting some prophylactic contractual provisions in it, or do you flag it as, you know what, this is a single point of failure of a critical product or service, we should consider buying them. And so we look at it as just anytime there's an opportunity to make an introduction, connect the dots, we try to push into that, facilitate getting opportunities in front of the right people and letting them have the opportunity to make the decision. I've had a philosophy since I've been in-house, but it's evolved a little, but it's been pretty consistent, which is we look at our outside counsel as an extension of our in-house team, right? And that's one of the reasons why I went in-house to begin with. And I remember a conversation I had with a colleague of mine at Fenwick way back when, where we always lamented about, boy, it's like throwing over the fence the stuff, right? In-house counsel, or just someone would throw something over to outside counsel without any context. They just ask a question, you answer the question, you throw it back over the fence, you never know what happens, and then that repeats over and over again. What we try to do is give basically outside counsel a budget, and not just a budget for one specific matter, but just say, you know what, this is your run rate for the year. And we're going to come to you with all these different questions, and we want you to be engaged with basically our organization. We're going to teach you how our products work. We're going to teach you what our business strategy is. We're going to give you basically the inside scoop as to where we're heading, and make sure you have that context before you do anything else. Because when we ask you the question, that's going to be time sensitive, and we're not going to have time to really bring you up to speed. And make sure they know, read our 10K or 10Q, read basically our product literature, understand our marketing campaigns. My philosophy is that the real differentiator is getting a really smart lawyer or legal professional to provide you contextual advice that gets you from point A to point Z as quickly as possible without necessarily having to go through every single step, because there are certain things that are just not relevant, or there's certain things that basically there's a much easier path than doing something that is just very formalistic and without the context of where you want to go. The other piece of this is expecting, and this is both for the in-house team as well as outside counsel, is a need for curiosity. That it can't just be, tell me what you want, I'm going to do it, but actually someone being curious and actually being a little proactive and just saying, hey, look, I'd love to better understand what are the 3 things that are keeping you up at night. I mean, it may not be in my bailiwick, but just knowing what those 3 things are. Is it political, that you want to look good in front of your boss? Is it substantive, that there's data localization issues that are starting to happen in the EU that you're worried about? Or is it financial, saying you just don't have the budget to do what you need, so let's figure out a way we can scrimp and save now to be able to basically have a longer and deeper relationship down the road. The mantra that I think anyone in-house will always say is that we're never happy with prices just being raised. I wonder whether or not it's potentially a red herring. And here's what I mean by it is that I know how much it should cost, whether it's hourly or fixed fee or whatever it might be for an agreement. And so whether it's a billing rate or whether it's fixed fee or some hybrid in between, my expectation is I'm going to give you a budget. You're going to be efficient with using that budget, and you're going to provide me value for what's going on. I do think that the billable hour gets in the way of that type of approach. I do hope that with the greater analytics that firms are getting into more legal operations, which was an enormously transformational thing, both in-house as well as in outside counsel, where figuring out the last 100 litigations, what is the range of what it costs in order to do things, especially the bigger the law firm, you would expect they would be able to aggregate their data even more so. You're probably going to be able to hit where it's going to be in the ballpark by knowing what you've done the last 30 times. Having to deal with an expectation that people don't have to live a major metropolitan area or a high cost of living. I do think there's the flip though as well, which is I believe that culture has taken an enormous hit at a lot of companies. I mean, that's one of the reasons I went to DocuSign, is that culture is important. We've been able to maintain it to a certain extent, but there's Zoom fatigue. There's people that are a little bit more on edge. There's the lack of relationship of you're just seeing talking heads and screens. And so I think there's actually going to be probably some sort of change in the way that we practice, especially the legal practice. Legal professionals like to be with one another and whiteboard things out and brainstorm and pop into the office and bounce an idea. And it's a little more difficult to do. So one philosophy I have about privacy is that it's one small piece of a larger piece that actually needs to be focused, which is really data. Is that data is the new intellectual property asset. And with data, you're talking about data governance, you're talking about data security, you're talking about data regulatory, which would be privacy. The state stuff, that's going to settle out. There'll be a federal legislation at some point. It's going to be forced by the disconnected state laws we're going to have around the country that are all going to be different. And then finally, there's going to have to be some federal legislation that'll harmonize. We've seen the GDPR, and we're seeing some of the strains around the edges, but it's working to a certain extent. And then what we're also seeing is people recognizing that data just needs to be handled a little bit more meticulously, and not just under the guise of privacy, but under the guise of data governance around how to use it for business purposes. How do you make sure that you understand what data you have to protect that as an asset? So I do think there's a holistic data level person comes into it, with privacy being one of the many levers you got, or spinning plates you got to deal with.
Doug Luftman, everybody. Fantastic discussion, Doug. Thank you so much. Thanks to our friends at Joinder for just supporting these discussions on empowering engagement. And I look forward to seeing everyone on Monday. I hope you guys all have a great weekend.